anywhere from as little as 20 different integrations to as many as 100 integrations to. You really want to look at where are the pain points. Maybe that business goal is, how do I improve customer satisfaction? What's the value that we're getting out of this AI?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Insurance Distribution Podcast. I'm here today with Kurt Diederich, co-founder and CEO of Finys. Kurt, how are you? It is great to meet you.
Great. Thanks, Martin. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Before we jump into the questions, can you briefly introduce yourself, background in the insurance industry, and also a bit of background of Finys?
I love insurance because it's complex enough to keep you engaged. You know, there's in our market, there's just a tremendous amount of regulation. There's a lot of complexity, so there's always something new to learn, and that keeps it exciting and interesting. So in about 2001, we decided to go all into insurance, and that's when we started Finys. Over 25 years, we've obviously been through quite a few technological shifts. Everything from seeing kind of the internet come out to mobile phones and tablets, blockchain, and now obviously AI, although I think AI has been around for probably close to 75 years. It's finally made its way into the mainstream as a usable product.
Excellent. And just for those that do not know what Finys actually does, it's a P&C core for carriers, correct? But maybe you can provide a larger definition of what you solve.
Sure. So we provide solutions for the property casualty insurance industry. We modernize carriers that are behind on their technology and help get them to where they need to go. And when we focus on this, we focus on it primarily from a business perspective, i.e., how do we help carriers achieve the business goals that they're looking for? And that's what Finys is designed to do. And it really manages the entire workflow. So that's going to be everything from policy, rating, claims, billing, all your portals, and then tie into all your other systems. So a typical implementation might have anywhere from as little as 20 different integrations to as many as 100 integrations to outside providers of data and services.
What kind of evolution have you seen in the systems, and which are the biggest struggles that the carriers still have that they already had back in the day and they still have, on why they need to modernize and why they seek for a solution such as Finys?
Well, carriers, different carriers are in different places. I'll call it on their technology. So I think what carriers start with or have, they'll start by upgrading and putting a system in place. And, we work with carriers that have old technology. We work with carriers that have more modern technology. But a lot of it just depends on how long you've been on the platform that you've been on. And that drives the need to upgrade. So older technologies and older platforms, when you go back 25 years, if you're running 25-year-old technology, there's a lot of risks with running that technology. So there are carriers that are very backwards, and there are carriers that are less backwards. And I think what you have to look at is is the technology and is my system constraining me from a business perspective, i.e., can I do what I need to do from a business perspective? Can I achieve the results I need to achieve? And if the answer is yes, then your systems are probably servicing you well.
Changing a system, call it legacy, that has been already working for a while, that although it's hard to manage, is stable, it's quite risky. And they might have the business understanding that they need to modernize, but it's not easy to take the step. How do you manage to do this gradually, or do you do 1 and 0, like you move to Finys and you start working with all the functionalities, or you start gradually with, let's work with one piece then the other?
I think you have to step back to the business objectives. And if you're having the sort of issues that I was just talking about, you can focus on specific areas. For example, we've had people tell us, well, our claims are just our biggest pain point. So maybe you just start with claims and you roll claims onto the system. For smaller carriers, you do have the option of flipping a switch. It's got its pluses and minuses. Flipping the switch means that you have to really go through a lot of due diligence in ensuring that the data is pristine going into the new system. You have to replicate everything, sometimes including bugs that are in the old system, and make all that happen. But once you get into a certain size carrier, you really want to look at where are the pain points, where can I get a lift, and focus on that. And I always go after the lowest hanging fruit first, i.e., the stuff that's going to give you the best business value, and start there. And it may mean that you start with a specific line of business and implement across the core, i.e., policy claims billing. Or it may mean that you just start with claims, and because claims is your pain point, and then maybe you go to policy and billing. So there's a lot of ways to do it, and I think a lot of it depends on the carriers, the problems that they're trying to solve.
How do you read the excitement about AI? Which use cases are you most interested in applying that you have already been seeing success? And at the same time, do you think there's also a hype behind AI, or do you actually see the future value that it will bring to carriers in this case?
Yeah, having been through what we'll call the dot-com bubble, there's certainly some parallels between AI and the dot-com bubble. With AI, I can talk about a lot of personal use cases where even something so generic, not integrated in your workflows like ChatGPT, you go in the browser and you can ask it to do research. You can ask it to improve an email. It's great at writing text, obviously. I mean, that's what the LLM is really designed for. But what you'll find with AI is there are just a ton of use cases in insurance, and I'll just start with a few. I think one of the most obvious of it is the assistance, and a good chatbot will ask you all the questions, or maybe even accept a feed of a declaration or the coverages that you're looking for, perform like an OCR on it, and build up a quote, ask for the remaining values, and then voila, you've got your price point right there. And then things like data query and analysis, you may have a full-blown lakehouse data structure, and now you want to ask questions about your data.
Do you happen to measure the impact of this technology to the final user? I mean, not only the carrier, but also the customer. Is there any efficiency gain that they have by working with AI systems? Like, do you happen to measure this as a technology company?
I think with any AI initiative, it's absolutely critical that you kind of set forth your metrics before you get started. Otherwise, how do you know the value of the solution that you're delivering? One of the crucial steps that's skipped is exactly what you said. What are we trying to achieve out of this? I.e., what's the business goal? And maybe that business goal is, how do I improve customer satisfaction? I think that is going to become a huge differentiator for insurance companies. You want to win the minds and the hearts of your customers. It is going to become more about customer service. I think differentiation is going to be more and more challenging. And without that measurement, how do you know if you're improving? So really, the measurements give you two things. Number one, it'll help you determine ROI. And number two, it'll help you determine your objectives. So in the case where your AI chatbots are designed to improve customer service in one form or another, or improve customer experience, we'll say, you've got to measure it. And you may be able to measure that right within the tool itself. You may measure it with a survey at the end, or you may measure it with an independent survey. But I think regardless, measurement is absolutely critical for determining the success of a solution that you're installing.
And connecting these to the different jobs that are already in the carrier. With every new technology wave, there's always the fear of, okay, some jobs will get out of the market. What am I going to be doing next if an AI is handling this? Like, where do you see the future of some of the jobs that could be now handled by AI?
Yeah, this is an age-old problem, and to get adoption of the AI, there's always concern about jobs, and every single disruption that's occurred out there has disrupted jobs, and a lot of jobs have simply just gone away. as a result of automation. And this will be no different. All these people have jobs. They're just different jobs. And I do think that, it's when you're in the midst of it, it's a problem. So I think as part of adopting new technologies, you really have to be sensitive to the culture of the organization. People need to be reassured that your job is changing, which is scary in and of itself, number one. But number two, there will be work for you. It's not going away, and it will change. And generally speaking, that work becomes more rewarding over time. So instead of doing what I will call mundane, repetitive work, you actually start enjoying the work a little bit more because that work becomes more meaningful.
And this connecting, although this podcast is about insurance distribution per se, but you lead a technology company. How do you bring this down to the company with this same mindset, but at the same time being able to see the gains of productivity, not only in software development, but in design, in marketing, in sales, in customer support, of course.
I do think that companies have to go through kind of a few stages. So if you're new to AI, adoption's the first thing, and they probably measured adoption through token spend as opposed to, what's the value that we're getting out of this AI? And that's, I think, after adoption and people kind of start exercising, I'll call it their AI muscle, they need to move on to, okay, let's see some real measurable productivity gains, i.e., where's the real value out of this? And that's really the next step. And when we obviously have a lot of developers in our organization, and we're asking them to make a very significant change, i.e., you really shouldn't be coding anymore. And the way you work, we have larger teams that become smaller teams, say one pizza teams. So these are big shifts for the developers. And what you're basically telling them is, somebody who spent a lot of money getting a 4-year degree at a college and then spending 10 years of their career learning to write just exceptional code. Unfortunately, those skills are not of value anymore. There's still some value, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. And I suspect it'll continue to diminish as the models make coding more and more automatic. So what happens to those people? Well, they've got to, just like everybody else, they've got to adjust, and they've got to effectively move up what I would call move up the food chain, or shift left, as some people say. And this is not easy for them, not all of them anyway. You've got some people that absolutely embrace it, and these are what I call the champions. And then those champions need to kind of push it through the rest of the organization. And once that happens, I think you build a momentum where everything just kind of takes care of itself. So that's kind of the progression that you go on, and getting people to buy into it. The champions is a great way to do that. And then they need to shift left. And when you think about what software development really is, it's just translating business requirements into something that a computer program can do. And if you don't look at it as, well, I need to write this language or that language to make that happen, I can just ask AI to make that happen. That's the mindset shift. I think that's probably the most challenging part for developers, is that mindset shift change.
Yeah, and at the same time, as leaders, the productivity measurement is a moving target. Like, it is not easy to compare results in time and efficiency, because we're currently seeing a wave that is increasing its capacity with every week. Let me connect this back to the carrier, and also to start closing the conversation to the carrier conversation that we were having about their future, or how do you perceive their future. Talking about business value, historically, and especially with the rise of internet and the Ubers and the ability to buy everything online, the agent's role have been on debate. Like, what is the future of the agents? And then we have Lemonade, that it's D2C with good and bad results, and then we have multiple MJs going after, like, stepping away from the agent and being direct. And as the consumer also gets from a TikTok generation to buy insurance, because in the end everybody will need to, but then also business lines having the ability to auto manage themselves too, with an AI assistant to understand whether they are buying the right product or not and evaluating. How do you see the future of the agents when talking about P&C insurance, personal or commercial lines? Now that we have AI and that we have digital journeys that are very powerful, the ability to do the end to end is not a problem now.
I forget when in the 2000s, but in the 2000s, the internet came out and we built all these insured and agent portals. And the question was, well, now we have an insured portal. So do we really even need agents anymore? So I kind of predicted agents would go away. And if you think about it, they have gone away in the travel industry, which is why I expected them to go away in the insurance industry. Well, here we are 15, maybe 20 years later, we still have agents and they haven't gone away. So I think, there has to be a certain level of comfort with the agents before people will fully adopt them. And I do think that for what we'll call more common and simple lines, they have been slowly aging out. And there's a big demographic problem with agents as well. I think your average agent is something like 55 or 60 years old. So they're all very close to retirement. And there's not a lot of new talent that wants to jump into those spaces, which is one of the reasons I think we've seen huge consolidation of agencies. So will agents go away? The short answer is no, especially I think on your more complex policies and your more complex coverages. I think that peace of mind, the ability to talk to somebody to discuss exactly the coverages that you need and understand them, to have somebody give you that offering. I don't think, not necessarily all the buyers are savvy enough to make that happen. So on your complex commercial lines, I think agents are here. And I'm going to say for a while, because again, I thought they might be gone 10 years ago, and yet here we are. Your personal lines agents, I think, are at a little bit more at risk. For your very transactional stuff, i.e. a renter's policy, do you really need an agent? You can look around your apartment or something, say, okay, I got X many dollars worth of stuff. That's what I need to insure. I need a little bit of liability. Very, very simple policy. Do you really need an agent for that? And I would say most people do not. Now, your older generations are obviously going to still want that personal relationship, but the younger kids, I agree with you completely. The younger kids want to move on. They don't necessarily want to interact with a person. They would rather talk to a bot. They would rather text, anything in many cases other than talking to a human being. So I think you have to service those people. And as that generation grows up and gets older, that's to become a larger and larger percentage of those sales. So most certainly, we will see them slowly go away. And this may solve kind of what I will call the labor problem with agencies. So this big rapid consolidation means that a single agent, instead of serving 100 customers, might be able to serve 1,000 customers with automation. So will they go away? No, they'll service a lot more customers. They may still assess the risk. They still may know where to place that risk. So they definitely have a purpose, but they're going to be able to scale out. You're just not going to need as many of them.
Makes sense. And the vision from the carrier side is to keep, broadly speaking, investing on the agent side at the same time that they invest on the direct channel. It's kind of the thing that you're seeing.
Yeah, I think carriers, generally speaking, you have your carriers with, you really have three models in my mind, and a fourth one that's blended. So let's start with the most traditional model, which is the independent agent model. And those carriers, those independent agents bring them business. They are the sales force for that carrier. And without them, the carrier's not going to sell anything. So they really have to walk a fine line. They don't want to upset their agent base, or they'll just start placing business elsewhere. And then that carrier will, kill their sales channel. So that's the independents. Then you move into the captives, and there's a number of carriers that are captives. And the captives are your sales force. Same thing. They make their commission and they go out and sell services. Then you move into your your direct to consumers. your progressives, for example. And by the way, Progressive actually has an agent channel as well as a direct channel, and each one has its associated costs. So, um, you know, there's certain business where the agents need to assist people in placing that business. So an insured comes, maybe just doesn't have a great driving record or something. That's a much harder piece of business to place, and that agent's going to know exactly which three carriers to put them on. So I think those are really the three channels. I There are definitely companies out there that are without agents at all. How do they procure their business? They could be try to sell direct like the big players, some of the big players in our market do today. But those require enormous advertising campaigns. And I think they also require a lot of scale that maybe these carriers don't necessarily have. So again, I think the carriers kind of pick their model, they stick with it. I've had plenty of conversations with carriers about talking about how do you sell direct. And a lot of times what we see happen is the insured will come, they'll hit the website, they'll put in a bunch of information, they'll get a quote, and then that quote gets routed to an agent. The agent immediately places the call back to the insured to finish closing that piece of business. And even if you close it directly, in many cases, what we'll do is we'll actually assign it to an agent so that that business gets served and you create an additional level of stickiness. Because if you just sell direct and you don't have any personal relationship with that insured, you lose the level of stickiness there.
Crazy, crazy times, especially with AI now being able to serve at scale, either reactively but proactively too. Like, how will this evolve? Um, because is it like the personal relationship that matters, or is it the service that you can provide, either reactively or proactively? Like, that's kind of the question mark that we have about the future with AI capabilities of outreach, personalization with the context. Like, do I care that it's Kurt that is managing because I see Kurt every month on an event and he manages and I care about that, or is it the service that I value about Kurt that it's bringing me the stickiness?
Maybe a movie kind of gives you some insight into what the future will look like. If you ever watch Blade Runner 2049, you've got Joy, who's basically the AI girlfriend of the main character. And the reality is that's that personal relationship. And, maybe agents of the future are going to be a little creepy, as we call it, figure out what all your hobbies are. And when you call them up, they're going to know that, well, your kid was at a soccer game and they won or lost, and that these are your hobbies, and they're going to talk to you about your hobbies as if they're a real person. And I think that blur is getting there, where this is actually starting to happen. All this information is out there. I mean, people publicly post it on Facebook and other social media sites, and all these agents can go scrub this information. There's no reason agents can't develop those personal relationships in the future. I do think that the younger generation does not generate or create those personal bonds as much as the older generations do. So that may become less important. But I do think that technology of the future, or if somebody wants to go to the trouble of doing this technology and it doesn't come off as too creepy, um, can make that happen. So, if you want an agent that creates that personal bond, maybe that's something you should
Yeah.
go build and test it out and get customer feedback on it.
And even a next level aspect to consider is all the information that ChatGPT, Claude, whatever assistant you're using already has about you, that you're consulting every day. And it's actually your advisor in a lot of decisions that you might make, either personal or business wise, and already has that context. So it's a lot of power that if Facebook or Instagram, X had a lot of information about ourselves, the assistants, it's crazy. And it might build this relationship, to your point, way easier than any other assistant might. So yeah, it's, I guess, why there's a lot of hype around OpenAI, Anthropic now potentially going public too. Kurt, this was a great conversation. If I may, let me just drop the final three questions that we call a ping pong, just to get to know you a little bit more personally, if that is okay with you.
Sure.
If you were to recommend a book to the audience, which book would you recommend?
One of my favorite books is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand.
If you have to pick one band or album that defines your history, which one would you pick, or a song even?
You know, I really like Pink Floyd, and he's got a lot of great albums. One of my favorites is Animals.
Okay, I thought you were gonna go like for The Wall or
The Wall is
Dark Side of the Moon, but it's Animals. Okay, nice.
Yeah, Animals. It's. I don't think it's quite as well known, but nonetheless, it's a great album. Takes a little, probably have to listen a few times before you can truly enjoy it.
Indeed, it's not the entry door to Pink Floyd, absolutely, but once you're there, yeah, love it too. And finally, if you have to pick someone to get dinner with, someone that is alive or it's dead, someone that is close or that you have never met, which person would you pick?
Oh my goodness, there's. I would say Warren Buffett. He was one of my inspirations to get into insurance.
Okay, great. Good. Thanks a lot for this meaningful conversation. I think we've been through different topics, of course, digital transformation and AI being one of the key ones. And I hope you also enjoyed this conversation on the Insurance Distribution Podcast.
I really have, Martin, and I appreciate you taking the time.
And we see you in the next episode of the Insurance Distribution Podcast. Until the next one.